presented by Altman and Taylor in 1973. I'd like to preface this a little bit by saying that I did originally want to record myself as well for this presentation, but my MacBook camera has been acting up over the past few months, so this is the best we're going to get right now, and I figured it works just as well. So what exactly is the social penetration theory? Again, this theory was developed by two psychologists under the name Irwin Altman and Dalmas Taylor in 1973, and it really aims to show how the relationships that we hold grow deeper over time, and this is through the act of self-disclosure. The onion metaphor is something I'm going to be talking about a lot within this theory, meaning that over time people begin to pull back layers of themselves to expose, just as an onion would to its core. Relationships often start out with the more superficial information. These can be things like basic hobbies, general interest, and then they make that gradual move towards the deeper and more intimate details. This theory follows 4 different steps, with the first being orientation, which is again that casual small talk and sharing that we do in the beginning stages. Exploratory affective, which is sharing thoughts and basic emotions. Affective, which is talking about personal and private matters. And moving inward, we have stable, which is when you finally reach that really deep emotional closeness and openness you are experiencing with that person. Moving on to the key concepts involved, there definitely is a few key concepts involved, the biggest one being self-disclosure, although this process is often broken down a little bit more. The first one I'm going to be talking about is breadth, and this is the variety of topics that's discussed, often being a bit more surface level, shallow in depth, things like that. This refers back to that onion peeling method. This is the beginning stages of the layers, and there's often a wide range of broad topics to cover when getting to know someone, obviously, even something like their name when they first introduce themselves. Moving on to depth, this refers to the level of disclosure and intimacy that's involved in these conversations. Again, with the onion peeling method, this shows how to the core we're reaching in these conversations, and as the relationship progresses, so does the self-disclosure on both ends. And on to the next thing, reciprocity, where relationships work better when there is disclosure of self on both ends. Obviously, we know if just one person is sharing rather than both parties, the relationship is not going to advance, or at least well. And this also grows over time. People begin to match each other's level of divulgence, which leads to a sense of comfort and trust within the relationship. As for how this ties back into communication and one of the strengths and weaknesses that I saw within this theory, SPT definitely helps us to understand how the interpersonal relationships that we hold develop over time, and there is that gradual process that allows us to open up and strengthen communication, and it definitely does not come immediately, at least to most. This superficial layer of the metaphorical onion that I keep talking about, we slowly see it begin to strip away at itself, and we can reveal our deep and authentic selves. Once there is that wide variety of topics discussed, the closer the relationship becomes. One strength that I did notice within this method is that it's very simple and gives an easy understanding of how relationships develop with those steps that I said in the first slide. It offers measurable dimensions that are clear to gauge the process as well, and this can be applied to various types of relationships, not just romantic, but platonic, coworkers, bosses, things like that. One weakness that I noticed is that it's overly linear in a sense, and there is that assumption that each relationship is moving inward progressively, which sometimes is not the case. Some relationships may take more or less time than average for a person to open up and share. I know in my personal case, I have a tendency to disclose deep information earlier on, especially in romantic relationships due to some past trauma, just to kind of inform them of my past circumstances. As for my personal experience with SPT, it is definitely lengthy, but the process that I chose to talk about was my experience rushing a sorority and the recruitment process during my sophomore year at Kutztown. So I rushed in an effort to definitely find myself in college and get that stereotypical experience that I was looking for. I went in extremely nervous and very eager to impress all the girls that I met. And during this time, I met the women of Delta Phi Epsilon, who I now get to call my amazing sisters. Obviously, at the time, I barely knew anyone and I was very unsure of how to present myself. I actually remember looking up on TikTok videos of questions to ask. Following the stages of SPT, during the orientation stage, I can say that this was the more superficial and outer layer of the beginning of this relationship. These were safe conversations to have, like my major campus involvement, where I'm from, things like that. During the exploratory affective stage, I began to feel a bit more comfortable opening up, and I started to discuss why I wanted to join a sorority for that sense of community and belonging. During the affective stage, I started to share my own emotions and personal struggles that I've had in college and throughout life, and I really began to build real trust and friendship with these sisters that led to these deep conversations pre and post recruitment. Now that I look back at the stable stage, which I can definitely say I'm at now as a senior, I see these relationships that I've formed, and I really see how these girls have become my true family over time in the past 2 years, and how we hold that deep sense of emotional closeness to each other that I've never experienced with any friends before. And there's really nothing but love and support that we hold for each other. Continuing my experience with SPT, obviously throughout this presentation, I've mentioned many times the onion theory and that layer by layer metaphor, assuming that linear movement from these superficial topics to the vulnerable disclosure. I would say that my relationship with my sorority sisters over time has followed this exact pattern. We went from things like my name, where I'm from, these surface level talks, to these people being the ones that I turn to in my darkest moments, my proudest accomplishments, things like that. And the more that we shared with each other, obviously the closer we became. Although, like I said, this bond didn't come strong instantly, and it was strengthened through gradual and reciprocal self-disclosure that I received as well. And it definitely helps to explain why I went from being this very scared, timid 19-year-old who felt the need to impress everybody to feeling a genuine connection with these girls. Now applying SPT to the concepts that we learned in the course content. In chapters 6 and 7, we talked about some various topics like listening in its various aspects, as well as the difference between social relationships and personal relationships. As for listening, this included active listening, engaged listening, so on. I can definitely say that engaged listening has showed that these girls really wanted to understand me, get to know me better, and foster this deep relationship with me over time. Even things like critical listening, sometimes that tough love that you hold in friendships played a role in giving me honest advice and decision making. Moving on to social relationships and personal relationships. The social relationship can be something like the server-customer relationship, co-workers, a boss, whereas the personal relationship, you're moving into things that are more irreplaceable and unique, such as a parent-child, a sibling bond, things like that. And I can confidently say that the relationships that I've built in college are a great example of going from social to personal relationships. And this is definitely due to things like the deeper talks, my goals, challenges I faced, trauma growing up, anything deep like that I can attribute to moving into these personal relationships. I believe I'm running out of time with that 8 to 10 minute time frame that we were given, so I'll leave my reflection here for you to read more, but I can definitely say that I've taken a lot out of the SPT theory, especially my own personal views on communication and relationship building, as well as for my own personal major with psychology and case management, and how I'm going to apply this to my personal relationship with these clients, and how things like self-disclosure can enhance the effectiveness of communication that I'm going to convey with them. It's also had me self-reflect on where a lot of my relationships may have went wrong, and how when you pull back in a relationship, keep things more private, it tends to weaken it. So I've done a lot of self-reflecting on how I can strengthen my relationships in terms of vulnerability and things like that. I had a lot of fun doing this presentation and learning more about this theory as well as myself. So thank you for a great semester.